Hi, I'm Silas Lesnick with ComingSoon.net, and I am here with Bonnie the dog, the star of Seven Psychopaths, and I'm about to talk to some of the film's cast. What do you think about that, Bonnie? Well, I guess the first thing watching this movie I want to know is how much of the Marty character is you?
Not too much. But like I could have called him anything, I guess. But then I thought, well, why not just to screw with people's heads a little bit and make him a little similar to me in that he's got my name. He is writing a script called Seven Psychopaths. He's got an Irish background, and he's got drink problems. It's fun to throw those things in there and throw a lot of red herrings in there too. But I don't think Colin and I have never once said, "Well, how would you do this?" Or it's a made-up character really.
Except for the fact that he's a writer and an alcoholic, that's to him. But everything else, no. His curiosities, I think, my character shares, like his wonderings about violence in film and the import of such. But I think Martin was just kind of messing with conventions there and just having a bit of fun.
When did you meet him for the first time?
I met him years ago for a play called Pillow Man that I almost did, and he was taking it to the States, and that didn't work out for one reason or another. But and then I there were other things, and then finally for Behanding in Spokane that Chris and I did on stage together.
What made you read the script and think this is something I want to get involved with?
Oh, well, I mean, I'd loved working with him in the theater, and he didn't direct the play, but he was there all the time, and so we got to know each other, and by that time I liked him a lot, and Sam and I had a great time together, and it was, pretty obviously a good job.
How much of him, though, comes from you working in a realm where you're working in these genres, like the hitman genre, and trying to figure out that it felt like the movie in some ways was about the value of violence in film.
Yeah, and I guess even in Bruges, the first one, we were kind of, without it being in a meta kind of way, we were kind of exploring that a little bit. What happens to, it wasn't just a hitman film, it's a hitman film about guilt and purgatory and hell and redemption, I guess. So in that sense, it's very much Colin's issues with Hollywood genre films and violence in films. His issues are the issues I share, I guess, without being too heavy about it, because I don't get heavy about it. But I think it's something worth exploring. The idea of why does almost every Hollywood film have a guy with a gun on the poster? Is that the best way to tell stories? And we explore that, and I'm not sure we come to a definitive conclusion, because at the same time it's a film about guys with guns, and the genre conventions are played out as much as the meta.
Yeah, no, it's poking fun at those conventions and having a debate about violence in film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it does an interesting thing, kind of as you're saying that, where it shows this. I mean, the film is so violent, but the violence is kind of heightened, and as Chris was saying earlier, it's kind of like a wily coyote kind of type of violence, and because of the hilarity and the behaviours that are beneath the violence, it allows you kind of to laugh at it. And then at the end, with all this discussion about violence in films, it actually shows you an event that took place in the history of our planet back in the early 70s, was it? It
was earlier than that.
It was earlier.
It was 60s maybe.
Mid-60s. When the monk self-immolated. So in a way it's kind of saying, yeah, violence in films, of course, it's a debate that should be had, but let's talk about violence in the real world, violence in life, and what gives birth to that instead of films, like in society, and the way we behave to each other, and the way we interact with each other, and the wars that take place, and stuff like that, I think, maybe.
I appreciated that the general response in a lot of films would be no, violence is bad, and this one sort of says, there may be some things you can gain from these type of stories.
Yeah, well, I share that. I mean, some of my favorite films are probably have a lot of violence in them, but I think they're quite moral films too. Something like The Wild Bunch, for instance, is an incredibly violent film, but it at the same time questions it, I think. Similarly, Seven Samurai is one of the most exciting films ever. Taxi Driver is, so like lots of the films we love, I think it's too easy to say as you said, violence in films is bad, because some of the best, because you could say violence in books are bad, or violence in plays, and we've been doing it, since the Greeks. You'd have to get rid of Shakespeare if you didn't want violence in art.